Hi there Star Wars collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video. Welcome to episode 53 of Ask Bossk's Bounty. This is of course the weekly series where you guys ask me questions in the comment section below and then I answer them each week as best as I possibly can. So if you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comment section below. And I do apologise if I didn't get round to answering your question this week, but don't let that deter you. Please leave it in the comment section below. And of course, if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to drop a like on the video because that really helps the video and the channel. And with all that being said, let's get on to the first question of the week. Ed Luchuk says, "Hi Tim, awesome video as always." Thank you, Ed. Question for next week. Do you think that prices on all the Boba Fett figures will go up thanks to his appearance on The Mandalorian? I recently saw the Black Series Tusken Raiders go up in price to $100 on eBay. Do you think this will happen to classic characters appearing on the show? Greetings from Mexico. So yep, I think that is entirely possible. I did notice that myself with the Tusken Raider. And I actually did a video yesterday with my son opening up old Star Wars figures, and we opened up this figure from 2002. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm just going to check out the value of this figure on eBay because I may want another one. You know, one may not be enough for the sort of scene that I want to create from Mandalorian. And I looked at the sold prices and he has shot up in value from before Chapter 9. And also, since I did my video yesterday, 7 more sales of that figure have happened on eBay. Now, I'm not saying that I have directly impacted that, but there's no doubt that this particular creature is really popular at the moment, purely because it's been in The Mandalorian. So, absolutely. And obviously with Boba Fett, obviously there is the thing called the Boba Fett tax. Everyone kind of knows that Boba Fett commands a higher price than most other characters. I think that's just always been the way. Whatever else Star Wars Edition says, question for next week. Will you ever review the Dr. Aphra Comet set 3-pack? Great videos, keep it up. Thank you, my friend. To be honest, I doubt I will because I do only have my, carded version of that now. I think I reviewed Dr. Aphra herself because she was on a single card, when she first came out a couple of years ago now. But I won't be reviewing the set. I only have the one and I don't really want to open it if I'm brutally honest. Okay, so Zach Walker and Bradley Harvey have very similar questions. So we're going to go with this one, which is question for next week. What other sets like the Tantive 4 would you like to see and what figure would you have with it? I.e., I would like a Death Star corridor with a Stormtrooper. So I'm going to go with something a little bit different because obviously I could go with the classic ones like the Cantina or the Death Star. I think everybody wants those. If you went down the Cantina route, there's so many characters that you could potentially put in that sort of Cantina playset. But what I would like to see them do is revisit Endor. I do love the Return of the Jedi, and I think it's been neglected a little bit in the vintage collection specifically. We still need a speeder bike. I think if they could do like the Endor bunker maybe with a bit of a scenery going on around there, that would be pretty cool with the double doors, the sliding doors. And there's just so many characters around that they could give us, and one of them is Princess Leia Organa here. We did have her in the Vintage Saga collection, but the figure's not great. This is obviously the vintage version, but we do need a really good update of that one. And another one that we've never had a really good modern version of is the Luke Skywalker in poncho as well. And I think that's one they could easily do. They've recently done the Jedi Knight Luke. They could use parts of that sculpt, I'm sure, to create a new Endor Luke with a poncho and everything. And that would open up the license for them to give us the speeder bike and things like that in the vintage collection. So yeah, I'd probably go with an Endor bunker playset. Okay, so we have 2 similar questions again from Luis Escalante and Carl Jones, who both are asking about the Clone Wars essentially. And Carl Jones says, "Hi Boss Bounty, do you think we will get most Clone Wars characters like Savage Opress, Count Dooku in the vintage collection?" So there has been a rumour, I think it was yakface.com that broke the rumour. You can see it on his website, that he's basically saying that potentially next year, sort of middle of next year, we're going to be getting a new Darth Maul and Ahsoka Tano from season 7. So that would suggest that Clone Wars is on the mind of Hasbro, and I certainly think it will be. It was a great success. There's lots of figures coming out in the Black Series, and there is so many that we could do. I mean, if we just look at the Black Series, I would love the Lawless Trooper and the Mandalorian Trooper thing. Those two straight away I would love in the vintage collection. And there's just so many more. I think with Count Dooku, I would probably prefer the Attack of the Clones Count Dooku on an Attack of the Clones card rather than the Clone Wars version, if I'm honest. But In terms of the Clone Wars, there's just so many that they could give us. Kremster Creates says, question for next week. Do you think The Mandalorian would be as successful of a show if it was animated like the Clone Wars or Rebels? I would have to say no, essentially. I think, obviously, this is the first live-action TV series that we've had, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's so successful. The other reason is that it's really good, and it's really cool, and it harks back to the original trilogy, and there's so many sort of Easter eggs in there for the older fans as well. It's a family show. Everyone enjoys it. My whole family enjoy it. But I think the animated shows, they are quite niche. I think you have to be a certain type of person to enjoy them. If you know, a lot of my friends just do not watch the Clone Wars purely because they are what they consider to be a cartoon. They've never really been invested in it. I've watched them. I think they're great. But there is a marked difference between, you know, an animated show and a live action show. But so yeah, I don't think it would be as successful. Ari Taco? Question for next episode. Do you think we're going to get a 20th anniversary vintage collection Attack of the Clones wave with Anakin, Jango, etc.? I'm not so sure if they do much for these anniversaries. If I'm honest, they completely missed the Phantom Menace anniversary. They did nothing really for the 40th anniversary of The Empire Strikes Back. I kind of think they reserve that for the Black Series, and I'm absolutely certain that they'll do something in the Black Series for it. Very much like they did with the Phantom Menace. I think they brought out those 2 convention exclusive of Maul and Obi-Wan on those lovely Phantom Menace cards, but again, they did nothing for the vintage collection. Maybe now the vintage collection is sort of on their minds a bit more, and with the Razor Crest being so successful, maybe they will do something, but part of me just thinks that it will just pass them by. Maxwell Gaynor says, question, how would you like to see a standardised release of special action figure sets for each part of the saga, i.e. Mandalorian Clone Wars Seasons Episode 5, in addition to the normal line? So personally, I'd love that. I really did like the 3-pack of the Jabba's Goons that we got. I think that was a really great release, and that was in the main line, I do believe. I don't think that was an exclusive of any kind. But generally, they reserve the 3-packs for exclusives. So they're either a retail exclusive or they're like a San Diego Comic Con or New York Comic Con or Celebration. So if we take the ARC Trooper 3-pack as an example, I think that was supposed to be an SDCC. And it ended up being a Hasbro PulseCon exclusive because obviously the situation that we're in 2020. So I'm not really sure if they will do that, but of course I would love it. I'm a massive fan of the 3-packs. James Birch says, hey Bossk, simple and boring question for you. With future TVC and Black Series 6-inch playsets, dioramas or whatever, do you feel they should have foot pegs built in or not? This is a difficult one because something like the skiff, for example, where my figures just balance on there and they fall off on a regular basis, I know I could use black blue tack. But you know, that for example could do with some foot pegs, but the problem is when you put foot pegs on, you're kind of limited to placing your figures where those foot pegs are, and that's the negative, and I think a lot of people don't like that. So I think I would say no, leave them out, and we can just use a bit of blue tack. Roger Rodriguez says, what do you think is the next vintage vehicle re-release? TIE Fighter with folding wings for Mando. The Walmart's TIE Fighter wings do not stay. Yep, they do not. Target TIE Fighter is great, but not the correct colour. Well, if they're going to do the folding wings, then it kind of won't be a re-release because they'll have to redesign those wings. But yeah, the body of the TIE Fighter they could just reuse. We usually get 2 to 3 vehicles a year in the vintage collection, and I'm really thinking that we're going to be, I think it is the year for the speeder bike. Not too sure if they'll give it us like that from Return of the Jedi, which would be my preference because we do need that in a vintage style box. But I think they're going to go all out of the Mandalorian. And obviously it's coming out in the 6-inch, but with, you know, the white bike and the remnant Scout Trooper. And I think that's what they'll give us for the vintage collection as well. I can see them doing that. Cheesy Knack says, do you think with the Black Series Gaming Greats line of 6-inch figures that we may possibly see a Republic Commando figure in the future? Whether it's just an all-white armour figure, which would allow for customization, or maybe one or all, fingers crossed, of Delta Squad. Personally, I don't think you will see that, and the main reason for that is the fact that the Gaming Greats is an exclusive to GameStop, and with most, if not all, of Hasbro's exclusives with retail partners, they tend to be repaints of things they've already done. So if you look at the whole Gaming Greats line, they tend to be repaints of figures they've already got. So if you don't have Delta Squad already in the Black Series, I don't really see them sort of repainting them or doing whatever for the Gaming Greats line. I think even the Jedi Revan was a repaint of the original Revan in the normal Black Series line, wasn't it? I mean, somebody might be able to correct me on that, but I think if you look at all the Gaming Greats figures, you know, the Jango Fett repaint, all the Stormtroopers repaints, and that's just how the deal is with exclusives. You'll find if you look across all the lines, most of the retail exclusives are often repacks or repaints. Ryan Weiss says, I think that's how you pronounce it, question for next week: do you follow any current events concerning trade with China? And does it worry you about what would happen if Hasbro could no longer use Chinese labour to produce toys? I'm not really up to speed on all that kind of stuff. However, I do know through somebody that I've recently become an acquaintance of that Hasbro are opening a production factory in Vietnam, for example. So I think they're probably covering all their bases. If one production line goes down, they can just, you know, use another one. And maybe the labour in Vietnam is cheaper, or if not the same as it is in China. I think that's one of the reasons why prices have gone up over the last few years, is that Chinese labour is no longer as cheap as it once was. Graham Clue says, hey boss, great video as always. Thank you, Graham. Question: do you think we'll ever get vehicles or mini rigs released in the retro collection line? I'd love to see something released to go with the new Mandalorian retro figures. Yeah, that's a bit of a strange one, the mini rigs. I would love to see mini rigs come out again. They would just be awesome in the retro collection. And I think it all just comes down to the success of the retro collection and how much of a success it is for them. I do believe that they are very, very happy with the way it's gone, with the waves that have already been released, and also for pre-orders of those Mandalorian ones. Whether they'll expand into vehicles and mini rigs, I don't know. I think maybe they'll explore creatures first, perhaps maybe a Wampa or something like that. Tauntaun. I could see them going down that route first, Dewback, you know, that kind of thing, rather than the mini rig. But man, I would really like it if they did do mini rigs. It would be so cool. Wayne Russell says, great Ask Boss bounty again, Tim. I like to get my weekly fix. Cheers, Wayne. Question for next week is, do you think we'll ever get a Death Star playset like the Palatoy one and not the plastic tower one that they had in the US? Oh, I'd love to see that. That would be great, but I just don't think they will do that. I mean, I could be wrong, but I think if they're going to bring anything out in the retro collection in terms of playsets and things like that, I think they'll be based on the Kenner ones, purely because that's the market the US market knows, and essentially the US market is a lot bigger than the UK market. We had the cardboard Palatoy Death Star, they had the plastic tower, and people still argue to this day, you know, which one's better. Us in the UK, we like the cardboard Palatoy one, and the US folks seem to like the tower one. But I think if they're ever going to do that, then they'd stick to the Kenner stuff, to be honest. Denny King says, hi BB, I only collect from the original trilogy. Nostalgia is a big part of it for me, and you've said that is for you too. We are similar age. I'm curious, therefore, why you and many others are at least equally enthusiastic about, say, clones. I accept I seem to be the odd one out. I don't necessarily think you're the odd one out. And look, if you said to me, look, you can only pick one thing from Star Wars that exists forever, then it would be the original trilogy, 100%. But I tend to like all things Star Wars. Sequel trilogy wasn't the greatest thing for me, but I still enjoy it, I guess. I love the Clone Wars. I love the prequels in some ways. I love the concept of the clones. I think the clones are awesome. They look awesome. I mean, if you just go back to when you were a kid, for example, you had the Stormtrooper. Just think how you felt when that Imperial Hoth Trooper came out and then the Scout Trooper came out. These slight variations of the Stormtrooper. You were like, wow, these things are amazing. And that's what the clones are like for me. You got all these different kinds of clones, the commanders, the captains, the different battalions and stuff like that. And it's just something that I find cool. Jamie Brewer says, congratulations on a full year. Happy anniversary. Sorry to hear that the UK will lock down again this week. Will you do some more figure opening in lockdown videos? So to answer that, I did one just yesterday with my son. We opened this guy here and a couple of other figures, Ephant Mon. So check out that video if you haven't already. And the question is, what Star Wars things did you have as a kid? I remember the plastic lunchboxes, stationery items and pyjamas. So man, I had everything at Star Wars when I was a kid. Not just Star Wars, I had loads of other stuff like E.T. and Action Force and Action Man and that kind of stuff. But if you're talking about things that aren't toys, yeah, I used to have like Star Wars lunchboxes. I had Star Wars bed sheets, all that kind of stuff. Brett Williamson says, hi Bossk, absolutely love the channel and appreciate all the great information and news. Thank you, Brett. I have a two-part question for you. First, I have a vintage Kenner Empire Strikes Back Hoth Snowtrooper. That is in all appearances a very mint carded figure. My problem is someone removed the Kenner proof of purchase on the back. Very carefully though, and did not breach the card front. How does this affect the value? Okay, so if you've got like a carded figure, essentially, for people that aren't really aware, you had these proof of purchase or pops just here, and people used to send those in to get free figures basically. Now I would say that if your pop is really nicely removed, you know, just shaved off so there's no ripping of the card, and the rest of the cards in really lovely condition, I expect you could probably expect to take 40 to 50% off the value compared to one that's in complete mint condition. I think that's, obviously it depends on the rest of the condition of the card, but I would say 40-50% if the pop's been removed. My last quick question is that I have a Return of the Jedi vintage Forlom carded, but it looks like it's been through hell. The figure, however, looks amazing and mint. Suggestions? So I think, are you asking me if you should open it? Definitely not. You should keep it as it is. I think all carded figures should remain however badly damaged the card is, unless of course the bubble's just completely falling off and the figure can sort of escape anyway. But I think, you know, a Forlom, a mint Forlom, you're going to be able to get loose anyway pretty easily. So I would just keep it as it is. Josh Butt says, amazing videos this week, thank you. And I agree that the vintage collection is back. With the Mandalorian continually returning to Tatooine, it begs the question what Tatooine figures you would most like to see in the vintage collection, such as the Tusken Raiders, Snaggletooth, Greedo, etc. Yeah, I mean, there's loads of original trilogy Tatooine figures that I would love in the vintage collection. Garen Dan, the spy, he would look great on a vintage style card. Of course, you've got Snaggletooth, he's rumoured for next year. Hammerhead, the list goes on. But ones from the Mandalorian, I don't think you can go any further than Cobb Vanth. Great character from Chapter 9. And I think we will definitely be seeing him at some stage in the Black Series and the vintage collection. Daniel van der Linden says, hey boss, great video again. Thank you very much, Daniel. Imagine Hasbro comes to you and they tell you to decide which characters should be included in a vintage collection wave. Which figures will you have made? Oh man, I think I'm going to have to save that for an actual video of like my most wanted figures. I want to do that per sort of entertainment property, whether it's the Mandalorian or one of the films or whatever. But you know, I think there's some obvious ones that I would really like in the vintage collection. I'm not sure if you could have them all in one particular wave, but you know, you've got the AT-AT driver, you've got Bib Fortuna, you've got Queel from the Mandalorian, you've got Antok Merrick, the Blue Squad leader from Rogue One. There's just so many, and you know, we're going to get a lot of them in the next few years, but yeah, it's very difficult to pick just 5 or 6. Alright then guys, thank you very much for watching this week. Please leave your questions for next week's episode in the comment section below. As I said, thank you very much for watching. Hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video, and we shall see you on the next one.